Good day and welcome America and Beyond. I'm Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports. Patriotism in action, putting America first, New World Order dead last. We are minutes away from the first votes in the United States that'll be counted, at least going to the polling places. Now, we know that absentee balloting and early voting has certainly taken place, but the big day is upon us. And let me start out by first giving you, the backstory. And my backstory is that initially, if you're a loyalist, if you've been a frequent flyer with us, you've been following this program, you know that I had predicted originally, back in 2009, that Romney would be the nominee for the Republican Party, and that in all likelihood, he's been the one deemed, selected, whether he be elected, to be the next president of the United States. I changed that in terms of not positions, but predictions after Clinton and the closer and the success of the Democrat National Convention as opposed to the Republican, the RNC convention. Although I did not expect Obama to come out in such a lethargic and lackluster and lame way in the first debate. So it kind of prolonged the agony. Now, if Obama hadn't come back and TKO'd, he was knocked out in the first bout, no question about it. But the next two, he took the 2 out of 3 falls. And so so that's indisputable, unless you're just a Republican robot. Okay? But if you have some sense of objectivity and fairness, you should be able to score things and not have the color blinds on, okay? Or the blinders on. Well, you know what I'm saying. So my sense is that based on Clinton the closer, the DNC successful convention, and the rebound of Obama in the final 2 debates, and, of course, yes, the mini-October surprise of the 7.8 and 7.9 so-called unemployment rate and jobs numbers. But you could also say that because of Hurricane Sandy, and no, I don't believe that HARP had anything to do with it. I don't believe the government had anything to do with it. There really are certain natural disasters. And Mother Nature still plays a role as opposed to all kinds of government interference or corporate interference. But I know that many of you have heard this from a lot of alternative, a lot of fringe programs, that this was all done by design. No, it was no design here. And then the same people that want to blame just one group, and they have a prominent presence in New York City, they would want their city of finance, I guess you could almost call it the metropolis of monetary, or the monetary metropolis, to be affected so adversely, where their homes and businesses and their trading and no, not at all. Natural disaster. Then I've heard the argument, they're going to seize upon those opportunities. Well, it is true that Obama appearing with Governor Christie and, those things do affect. You have to expect that if you're the incumbent in any race, especially the president, and you have great photo ops, or you have opportunities to show presidential leadership, or at least the appearances of such, you're going to be able to take advantage or monopolize or capitalize, I should say, on those opportunities. And Romney would do the same. And I said all along that Governor Christie, when he gave his speech, one of the primary speeches, top-tier speeches, at least in terms of scheduling, at the Republican National Convention, hardly a whimper or a message or even any reference to the candidate, meaning Mitt Romney. I think it came in at the very end, and several of them did that, because he's, in all likelihood, going to run in 2016. But let's get past Sandy and the natural disaster. No, it wasn't HAARP related. And let's focus on what, because I changed my prediction, and this was 2-3 months ago. I guess you would have to say that would have been August. I believe it would have been August. Yeah. So, and I gave some of the reasons just moments ago, and also in previous programs. So I'm going to make a prediction, and it is November the 5th, 2012. In terms of percentages, I'm still sticking by my. And again, no, I didn't do the Romney reversal. You have the right to revise predictions based on current conditions, just like the weather. You can't say, "Wow, your forecasting model said X, and you're now saying Y." Well, because if you have a pool of data, or you see things shaping up in a certain way experientially, or through the data that's been gathered, I think a smart person would always make those adjustments or modifications and amend the original reporting. That's what I did. Either way, the puppeteers win. Either puppet could serve them well. I just think that they decided that they were going to continue on with Obama. Although Romney would have been very befitting of what it is they want to accomplish, because it's corporate goals, and it's the continued plundering of the planet from these plutocrats. And it's also keeping the peons on the plantation and keeping them entirely enslaved. But let's get past New World Order. I say Obama will win by, in all likelihood, 3 to 5%. It could be as high as 6 or 7%. I hear all the Republican chatter that it's a quiet landslide. Well, hey, I could be wrong. If the people are really seething, and there's more Democrat discontent than we realize, and if the polling data is not reflective of that, there could be an undercurrent that could create havoc in terms of those Democrats that are, I would say, at least mildly, if not even more significantly confident that Obama will be reelected. But I'm amazed how many Republicans, writers, pundits, talk hosts, and those politicians that truly believe Romney's going to win, and win big. So I would say that it would not surprise me if the margins are similar to Obama's defeating John McCain. But we'll see. So I just want to put that on the record so that someone say, well, you didn't hear that in a podcast or a broadcast. Oh, you did. And I've now got it recorded for the annals of history. But it's not that important. It would not entirely shock me if Romney won, or it was fixed so that the man that I think they originally selected. But again, he just wasn't performing well on the world stage, and the 47% comment, and he likes to fire people, and we can go on and on and on. I think they just realized that this guy could be, problematic for them, where they already know what to expect from Obama, and they've already pretty much schooled him and trained him, and they don't want to have to start over. That's my view. Now, I do want to make mention of my guest on the interview, second program. And I'm really excited about this because it's taking me back to my roots, because my forte and what I've been told all along is that you are an interviewer. Well, I've become somewhat of a monologuist and a speaker and a teacher and an educator, etc. But I'm starting to like this. I think part of it is that we can schedule times that are convenient for yours truly, the host, but also the guest. And we don't have any commercial interruptions or disruptions. Now, the first interview with G. Edward Griffin, it's my fault. I should have probably done more research and more homework as to how to record the program. And I'm not a technical person, not a technician. But it's still, you can hear the guest, much better than you could the host, and that's probably even more important. Actually, it is more important. But that interview it's in the can. It's there. I've already put in my request for a follow-up interview, which will give us better, higher quality fidelity. Second interview, which I did send out invites to all the serious independent third-party candidates, and the only acceptance that I received up to this point, although it was short notice. No, well, actually not that short a notice, because I sent them out 2 weeks ago, and then I resent them, was Gary Johnson's running mate, and that's Judge Jim Gray, vice presidential running mate for the Libertarian Party. And if you haven't listened, I would highly recommend that you listen, because the questions that I ask and the conversation we had go beyond the election. And I was very purposeful in that approach. Now, some might say it was more of a conversation than a confrontation. Well, I agree with about 80% of what the Libertarians, as a party and as the general philosophical thrust of their positions. So, but there were some areas, and I'm not going to go into the full detail now, but pro-life versus pro-choice, and I'm a protectionist. They believe in free markets, unfettered. But in terms of personal liberties, personal freedoms, and the expansion or the protection and the recognition of those, there is no other party that is stronger. And so I have a lot of respect for the basic and primary tenets of the Libertarian Party. But the reason I wanted to give them this kind of promotion was because we have a monopoly grip on the body politic, and the problem with that is that you have one party with two names. You have a serpent with two heads that need to be severed, and you have these parties that believe that they have a divine right for them to exist and not coexist with others. And really, essentially, it's one corporate party that's able to have certain minor distinctions, and they're able to have some dissent and some differentiation as it relates to some policies and positions, but on certain core issues that affect the monetary powers. It's the monopoly monetary policies. And this New World Order, the globalist power elite, they're going to make the final decision here. And I think that they reverse themselves, like I had to reverse my position, or I should say my prediction, not my position. I've said those words so often that I'm starting to flip on those. But no, it's a prediction, not position. And so I say that Obama will win somewhere between 3 and 5%. It could be as high as 6 or 7. I'd be surprised if it went higher than that. But it would not shock me. I wouldn't be flabbergasted if Romney won either by a razor's edge, or he actually won very big. Because you just never know. I mean, that is if the entire election, or at least certain swing states are not fixed, because we do have votes that are going to be tabulated. And those calculations and tabulations will come in through some foreign companies. And so we just don't know. But I'm just saying, let's just pretend that hypothetically we have an honest and free election, and there isn't vote rigging, and there isn't the fix is in, and it's not total selection as opposed to election. you could have an electorate that the pollsters maybe are not really picking up on, that they're going to say, well, I can't tell my friends I'm going to vote against Obama. But, I think that Romney guy, he might give us just a little edge in terms of our small business or job opportunities, and just, further, fuel for the free enterprise system. And I know some are going to vote in that direction because they're going to say, well, I can deal with corporate socialism more than I can red communism. And at least this guy will give lip service, and maybe the Republicans and Tea Partiers can keep him on track and push him in that direction. It's possible. But I think that for matters of personal conscience or your own political conscience, that you should always vote your conscience, and your conscience should always be your guide, and that you should vote for the person, if he exists, on the ballot, whether it's local, state, federal, and most importantly, the presidential race, because every state you'll have certain independents and third-party candidates that may differ from state to state. But I think to make a huge statement, I would recommend going libertarian. Yes, you could go to Constitution Party. Yes, you could go with some of the greener and or some might even call the redder parties, because it's more socialistic, some of them. But again, the reason that I sent the invites out, and the reason I had a conversation, not a confrontation, with the vice presidential running mate of Gary Johnson and the Libertarian Party, is because I wanted to talk about the overarching issue of this party monopolies, or the party monopoly, which is the super PACs, the corporation that controls these puppets, and who the puppet masters and the puppeteers are. And so I wanted to see, and I've said this all along, I'd love to see no parties. But it's going to be very difficult to get to a point politically where you'd have no parties. So the next best step is free and fair access to serious candidates that really want to run for political office, and have a very low threshold or benchmark as to how that's to be met in order to be someone that's eligible and someone that receives ballot status or access. And so that's the reason that I wanted to talk to him and give some support towards third parties, give some support towards independents, and actually have freedom of choice politically. That's what it is. We don't have choice, and then you have your friends, you have your colleagues, you have the media, you have all the political pundits, and especially conservative talk radio, but even Democrat liberal radio and talk TV, all saying that don't squander your vote. Your vote should go for one of the major parties. Well, one of those major parties, one of those candidates will lose tomorrow night, unless the election could be held up if it's hanging chads or whatever, if it's that close to call or a recount. But in all likelihood, one of the major candidates will lose. And if that's the case, then did those folks that voted for that candidate, did they waste their vote? Did they squander their vote? I say no. But I still believe that if it's a protest, if you're in a state like Nevada and it says none of the above, and that's the way you want to go, that's fine too. And if you can't find candidates that you feel comfortable with, and even if it's a protest vote, well then don't vote. But I prefer that if you have the opportunity, avail yourself, because you could at least vote for independent third party folks, even if you're not in sync completely with them. At least support the third party free elections movement. I'm Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports. Have a great night, and there are my predictions, and that's my reporting here and now.